We all remember our childhood. Little kids running around dreaming to be astronauts, firefighters, pilots, dreaming of traveling the world and seeing what it has to offer. We remember the first time we took off in a plane, looking above the clouds in amazement. Vancouver International Airport not only provides us the means to travel this world, but is also actively helping to preserve it. That's why we at Falcon Consulting are so excited to help you develop your digital wings and reach new heights for your airport. Welcome everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm Levi, and together with me are Henry, Tony, and Jonathan. I will now pass the floor to Henry, who will take you through our situational analysis.
Thank you, Levi. So let's first have a look at our situation analysis. We identified that you already took some first step towards digitalization, but there's still a long way to go, especially for your airside operations. Currently, there's no management of airside operations, or very little, which leads to congestions and inefficiency. The same applies to passengers. There's no live traffic data of passengers, and therefore you are currently missing out on the opportunity to improve customer experience. Already further digitalized is the state-of-the-art baggage system. Another way to digitalize is your innovation hub. Thank you, Levi. It enables innovation directly at the airport and provides the environment to test new ideas and helps engage with local startups. Also, a really important step towards digitalization is the digital twin, but we think you can even further use it, because in the moment it lacks live data input and therefore it is not able to exploit its full potential. We identified another key issue. Currently, 88% of revenue comes from passenger traffic. There's not enough diversification, and we also, together with digitalization, want to work on that. Now let's have a look at our vision for 2030. So we want to build up the digital twin. We wanted to become a predictive management tool, not only with live data visualization, but also with forecasting several hours ahead. That means we need to fully integrate all subsystems, which also enables stakeholder communication and greenhouse gas emission minimization. The digital twin will help us to enhance customer experience, to become more sustainable, enable continuous improvements in various areas, achieve higher efficiency in several key operational areas, helps the complete airport to become safer, and will facilitate new business models. Now let's have a look at our strategy. We want to reach new heights with our digital wing strategy, which means we first want to catch the winds of innovation. Then after it, we want to achieve nimble efficiency and finally land at our destination with our general systems integration. Now I hand over to Jonathan for the first strategy.
Thank you, Henry. So let's have a first look at our first strategy, which is to get the winds of innovation in the company. Now, if we move on to the next slide, we can see that you already have a really good infrastructure when it comes to technology. So you already have automated border control with the Border Express, where you only need to show your picture and your passport to cross the borders. Secondly, you already have the automated luggage drop-off, where you only need to show your passport and your ticket at the Check-in Express. And last of all, you already have an app in planning to help the passenger check in more efficiently and save the digital boarding pass on the phone. Now, we think that with the introduction of face recognition, you can leverage all of those three technologies to make them more efficient. So first of all, with the help of facial recognition, you could prevent those long queues when boarding the airplane and decrease the times from 30 to actually 10 minutes. Secondly, you can help to prevent the spread of COVID-19 with contactless luggage drop-off. And third of all, you could already include the facial scan in your app to save the customer a lot of time at the airport. But how exactly would it look for the customer? There we can see a small customer journey. So first of all, the customer scans the passport and his face in the app, and then the app looks if both of those pictures match. Secondly, the customer can just enter the airport, drop off the luggage with his face, save another time by not having to wait in the queue, and avoids having contact all the time. And the next step, he can walk through the kiosk to scan their face, but this is only if he does not use the app. So for example, there are several kiosks located across the airport, and if you don't want to use the app to scan your face, you can also do it there. This helps you to conveniently go through the security check and later on enter the plane without having to stand in the queue and do all the time-consuming check of documents again. Now, there we have a a better image of the customer journey, we still want to keep track of how the customers move. And this is where Veovo comes into place. So first of all, we would like to track the passenger movement with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth beacons, which can track the smartphone devices of the passengers by up to 1 meter. And secondly, we would like to add 3D sensors to the ceiling to track the passengers' time, location, height, and speed. Now, this would not only help us to make better predictions with the heat map of the passenger movement, but would also help us to make better planning of the capacities and thereby decrease the waiting time at, for example, the security check. Additionally, it would also help the passenger because he could get more information on the app, as for example, the time it takes him to get to the gate or the closest restroom, or if he approaches one of the gates, then his boarding pass will open automatically. Now that we improved the inside of the terminal, how can we improve the outside of the terminal? This is where we'll hand over to Lee.
Yes, thank you, Jonathan. We want to introduce nimble efficiency to the airside of your airport. What we want to achieve is an active aircraft management system that will improve efficiency through a predictive look at aircraft processes and turnarounds, and a more intricate look at gate and runway capacity. To do this, we will need certain data. We need integration data of airport, runway, and gate schedules, and combine this with newly acquired data on the aircraft processes. To be more specific, we want live footage of turnaround processes and live data on gate and runway usage that will be retrieved from your partner carriers. To get this data, we will need certain technologies. We will need tech that studies and extrapolates. The first piece of tech that we will need is a deep learning AI for aircraft scanning. For this, we have selected Maastricht RCNN, which has been proven useful not only in theory, but also in practice at one of the biggest airports in the world. This AI will use the live footage from the cameras around the turnaround processes to learn and predict completion times, but also possible disruptions and even damages on the plane to further get more information on these processes. These predictions and completion times will then be connected through an integrated dashboard using already existing stream connections. That's why we want to end up with a full airside airport scheduling. So to clarify, we get live footage from turnaround cameras and airline schedules from carriers, and then we transform that into full airport schedules, which will later be integrated into the digital twin, and also will transform this data into AI data that we can share with our potential partners. So we have two parts: airport capacity, which will plan where and when an aircraft should be located, and then aircraft status, which will plan when an aircraft is ready to be located or when delays will occur. This is how we want to introduce nimble efficiency to your airside businesses. And now how do we integrate it? For how we will integrate it, I will pass the floor to Tony.
Thank you, Levi. Now, for the general systems integration part of our Wings strategy, we have seen that you've already started implementing a digital twin, which we think is a really great thing, and you should really expand on this. Now, to do this, you should look at your digital twin as a common data environment where you can build on existing advances, scale innovative initiatives, and aim for a complete integration of proven processes. This way, you can iterate towards a holistic representative model. And such a real-time comprehensive digital twin will facilitate a deeper understanding of your processes and unlock your capability to anticipate and steer future developments. Now, looking at this in a little more detail, this is what you're already doing. So you're already using 3D renderings to improve customer experience by, for instance, raising situational awareness and supporting people with particular needs. What we propose is that you further lean into this and integrate, as Levi has just outlined, carrier scheduled as well as plane cameras to enhance aircraft management and decrease, for instance, runway lead-ups, delays, and generally, this also enables you to decrease unnecessary greenhouse gas emissions, making your airport more sustainable. Next, the crowd trackers outlined by Jonathan could also be integrated into this digital twin, which enables you to dynamically respond to crowd intensities with scheduling, for instance, cleaning services as they are needed in different areas. What's really key, though, is that we really see exceptional long-term potential in this digital twin. For our vision for 2030, we think you can really increase efficiency as well as safety with this. If you integrate a holistic IT-based airfield management solution, you can, for instance, continuously simulate your current situation 3 hours into the future, which enables you to leverage predictive management, tackling problems before they actually arise. You can also reduce inefficiencies by closely matching time and place of aircrafts, passengers, luggage, as well as safety equipment, increasing the safety of the airport as well. Next, you can also integrate the airport emissions and general facilities monitoring to predict your environmental impact and minimize it accordingly. For what this means for your existing business, I'm going to hand over to Henry.
Thank you, Tony. So as we discussed in the beginning, in the moment, 88% of your revenue comes from only passenger traffic. To become more resilient, for example, against shocks like the COVID pandemic, we need to support our additional businesses. For example, the cargo operations. In the moment, 100% of the cargo space available is already occupied. So we definitely need to provide more space for cargo operations, and the location selection should happen based on a simulation analysis run with the digital twin to select the perfect site for new cargo operations. Also, the digital twin will help us to achieve a higher efficiency, integrating all the aircraft management data we have and also leverage on further data. Also, we want you to provide access to the digital twin to cargo firms for them to be always able to see, for instance, where the aircraft is in the moment and to streamline their processes to gain additional efficiency. The digital twin will also help to enable the innovation hub. Now, the innovation hub can provide a fully observable and measurable test environment. Moreover, we can test new business models based on the gained data. That helps us to become one of the leading innovative airports and sell the solutions we developed. When we talk about solutions we develop, we want to develop multiple packages. We want to have, first of all, all facial recognition systems, the crowd controlling, all the management, aircraft management, and these packages can be sold to other airports around the world. So we can create revenue by selling already existing assets to other airports. We can also leverage up on our own experience when providing consulting services to other airports to digitalize their operations. Now I will hand over to Jonathan to guide you through our finances.
Thank you, Henry. So let's have first a look at the analyzed revenue and cost part. So there we can see that the first thing we did is making a passenger forecast until the year 2025. And there we can see that the pre-COVID levels are going to be achieved starting in 2023. This passenger forecast acts as the base for our revenue forecasts on the right-hand side. Another aspect to increase the revenue is that we increase the airplane turnover due to the shorter turnaround time. So we decrease the amount of time that it takes for the boarding, and we also decrease the time it takes to check for damage. This increase is supposed to be 7.5% in the future. As a result, the EBITDA will reach a record high in 2024 due to the increase in turnover. And as a result of that, the increase in revenue on the dollar spent increases by 16.7% compared to 2019. In comparison to 2020, it will even increase by 72.8%. But those are not the only KPIs we should keep track of, which is why I will hand over to Henry again.
Thank you, Jonathan. When we focus on KPI, we especially want to know one thing: how satisfied are our customers? And that means how satisfied are passengers going through the airport and also airlines using our facilities. Moreover, we want to see how our digital twin improves efficiency. And we want to especially look at that by having data on the average time on ground for aircraft. And for passengers, we want to have a deeper understanding of the total waiting time for passengers in front of, for instance, security screening, check-in, or boarding. Additional KPIs we might consider is greenhouse gas emissions, waiting time, in particular at security screening, because that is in a moment the activity that takes the longest time, the revenue from cargo business, as well as the share of revenue excluding passenger traffic. Another important KPI is the departure punctuality, and that determines our attractiveness as an airport to airlines. Now, let's have a look at how we want to implement the strategies. For our first strategy, Winds of Innovation, we first want to set up a task force. Then we need to decide on the hardware requirements, install for instance, the new kiosk and Veovo hardware requirements, and adapt the app for new purpose. At the same time, we want to start training the personnel and conduct first pilot testing before we roll out the system to the complete airport. Our nimble efficiency strategy has a two-pronged approach of implementation. On the one side, we need to establish an AI development team, acquire cameras, and set up a first pilot testing environment to especially gather the data and let the AI train. On the other side, we need to gather data from our carriers to integrate it later on in the system. When we are successful in both steps, we can integrate them together and roll it out across the airport. The general systems integration, we can directly make the 3D renderings already available, also available online. We will hire an experienced integration team and constantly coordinate with the other projects ongoing and prepare for integration. So as soon as one of the other projects makes success, we will try to implement this into the digital twin to, in the end, have a complete integration of these subsystems and be able to also add further features in the future. Now I will hand over to Levi for risk and mitigation.
Yes, thank you, Henry. We've looked at several key risks, with the first one being the data privacy concerns. We want to mitigate this by extensively evaluating possible sources of privacy concerns. We've already evaluated one main source, which will be our Winds of Innovation strategy. If we are going to introduce facial recognition scanning, there are bound to be data privacy concerns. To counteract this, we want to keep up with privacy regulations and also fully disclose all the data that we will use, not only in the airport itself, but also using the app. We will also ensure that there are still legacy options available for boarding, so we don't force our customers into this new technology. Secondly, there is a possibility that costs might exceed the budget. Because these are rather innovative projects, this will always be a chance. We do think that we want to mitigate this by keeping reserves for possible disruptions, but we believe that the chance of this is quite low. Lastly, there's a possibility of delay in implementation. We think we can mitigate this by keeping the implementations of these projects stepwise. That's why we run pilot tests. That's why we don't go full force right away. Additionally, because it's so stepwise and they run past each other, these projects are fairly independent. This means if one project runs over time, it doesn't have many negative consequences for any other projects, thus keeping the consequences isolated. So these were the risks, and I will now hand it over to Tony, who will give you a small summary.
Thank you, Levi. Now, a small summary of our digital wings strategy. For our Winds of Innovation part, we have seen that customers sometimes experience higher waiting times, which leads to a stressful journey. What we want to do is enable a frictionless journey until the boarding. We're using facial recognition, creating an easy and efficient process for passengers. In the enable efficiency part of our digital wings strategy, we've seen that aircrafts are currently not actively monitored on the ground, leading to delays, unnecessary greenhouse gas emissions. So what we want to do is create an active aircraft management system for which we will gather the required data and apply deep learning AI to result in less congestion, less emissions, and increased time savings. Finally, the general systems integration of our digital wing strategy is meant to generate a system that can manage day-to-day operations, enable forecasting, is based on live data, and integrates all systems in the airport into a digital operating environment, which helps you to become more efficient as well as customer focused. Thank you for your attention. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, competitors. Judges, you have 10 minutes to ask questions. You may begin now. You can go ahead, Dwayne. I think you're muted.
I get the second prize today for being the second person on mute. Sorry. As you can see, it happens to everybody. Sorry for wasting your time there. I'll be quick with my question. Just talking about your efficiency numbers, that 16.7% efficiency number, just going through the thread of your story in terms of using the simulation of events, particularly on aircraft movement, passenger movement, the facilities usage and disruption management. I wanted to get a sense of how you arrived at that 16.7%. You're conveying a sense of confidence with that number. So just break that down for me, if you can, please. Thank you.
Sure. Levi, if you would then first go ahead to slide 50, please. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the first thing that we did is calculate the customer base. So this is the starting point for all of this. And then we can see that we used the numbers until 2022 and then added a short-term growth rate for the next year and then the long-term growth rate over the next 4 years afterwards. And after we had those forecasts, can you go to slide 48? We took the revenue numbers of the past years, and then we calculated how much, for example, how much landing fees we made based on the number of passengers. And then we calculated an overhead, and with this overhead, we calculated how much we expect to receive in 2024 with the amount of passengers that we expect. But additionally, of course, because we think that we can increase the efficiency by decreasing the duration from 90 to 75 minutes. So this means that we think that we can increase the turnover of the airplanes by 8%. So we also included this number over there. And then if you go to slide 49 in the end, with similar approaches, we also did this with the expenses. And then at the bottom line, you can see the revenues per dollar spent. And there we can see that in the past, it was $1.70 in 2019, $1.15 in 2020, and we expect it to be $2.01 in 2024.
Yeah. Super, thank you. Steve, you're next on the hierarchy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, great presentation. Just on the nimble efficiency track, has this idea or this approach been implemented anywhere else? And if so, where is that?
So when we focus on the plane scanning, it has been implemented. The actual AI learning mechanic has been tested by several universities, including TU Delft. But it has also been implemented at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. They've been doing it for several years, and they went on with a pilot test, just as we planned. And recently, they have expanded the system to many more of their docks after around 1.5 years of pilot testing. That's where we got the inspiration for. We looked at previous success and took a similar timeline for that. So yes, it has been successfully implemented before.
Okay, thank you.
Malcolm, you're up next. Go ahead.
Thank you. Lovely presentation. Just wanted to check your resiliency on your data cleansing, as data in is only good as will predict your data out and its validation and effectiveness. So when you look at your project plan and your timeline, what have you done to think about contingency on collecting enough data sets, let alone ensuring it's clean?
So when we look at our implementation timeline, what we clearly want to do is we always want to test our solutions before we roll out them to the complete airport. And during these tests, we want to ensure that first of all, we gather enough data and also make sure that the data we have is qualitative enough to be to enable our solutions. That is especially for our nimble efficiency strategy, where we first of all have a stage where we really gather the data and try to or use it to learn the AI system, and at the same time even gather more data from the airlines and carriers to integrate it. So we want to make sure that the data has good enough quality and that we have enough of it by having long enough test phases. I hope that answers your question.
To slightly add on to that, we plan to do these innovations parallel to using our legacy systems. So there's definitely first a period of comparison, and we will only implement it fully when we've seen that the new systems have overtaken the legacy system in terms of efficiency and data correctness.
Thank you.
Very cool. Chris, you're next in the hierarchy. Go for it.
Thanks. Hi, team. Really enjoyed the presentation. Thank you. One of the biggest challenges at my job is adoption of technology. And what you're suggesting here, your recommendations, there's a lot of new technologies. Any thoughts on change management strategies, the type of talent that will be required to successfully deploy and use these technologies?
Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you can start. I will add on later.
Yes. So of course, technologies like these are always very scary to implement, especially because they're innovative, they're new. So for example, I wrote down a small example. We want to establish an AI research team. We want to appoint a liaison for data comparison, and create a cross-functional team. What I think is really important, that we need to foster a culture of learning and of cooperation, especially because we want to move forward in a way where we integrate the full airport. It's really important that there is a lot of communication between departments and between areas of the airport. So while I cannot say with confidence that it will be an easy implementation, as innovation never is, I do feel like the culture of the company is definitely at the basis of these implementations. And like we've seen, you've already implemented several innovations in terms of technology. So we want to build on that existing knowledge and expand those workings.
Thank you.
Cool. Peter, go for it.
So my question is a little similar to Chris's, because the thing that keeps me awake at night is capital cost. I loved the way that you brought the digital twin alive. I really enjoyed hearing about the sort of situational awareness opportunities and the predictive management and the AI. I was particularly impressed with your slide 28, where you set out the implementation. But that would be the thing that would really freak me out, just because you're trying to accomplish a hell of a lot in a very short space of time. I did appreciate your financial analysis, but here is my question. With all that you're trying to achieve in a short period of time, how much attention did you pay to capital cost, to operating cost as well, of bringing on those additional resources? And the implications of running parallel legacy systems with a new system on operating costs.
Yeah, thank you for the question. If you would go to slide 51 first. Perfect. Here we can see that we broke down the biggest parts of the costs in several different models. So the first and the biggest one is basically the cost for kiosks to scan face. And there we can see that because this has already been implemented at London Heathrow and they paid £50 million for it, we can see that this in turn would cost approximately 27 million for you. Oh yeah, that was before the discount, but because you have this technology yourself, you would of course get it cheaper. And this is why we expected this to be $20 million. And this is the biggest part. Now, if you would go to slide 47. We can once again see the total cost. So for the first strategy, we have the cameras and the AI development team, which will result in costs of 7.8 million. Then for the second strategy, the nimble efficiency, we have the kiosks and the VOVO mapping, which will result in a total cost of 24 million. And the last one would not require any new initial costs, because this one is already what you have in-house. So therefore, the total initial cost we expect to be at 32 million.
Thank you. Great answer. Great presentation.
Thank you.
It looks like you had about 20 seconds left, so probably no room for an extra question there. Michelle, we'll hand it back to you then, I guess.
Thank you so much. So once again, thank you to our competitors for your presentation and to our judges for your insight and expertise. At this time, we'll take a short break and begin the next presentation in 10 minutes. As a reminder to the judges, you may use this time to individually deliberate. However, please ensure that your audio is muted and your video remains turned off during the break. Please also stay in the room and be ready to turn on your video back on at my instructions so we can begin the next presentation on time.
Cool. Thank you, Team Falcon.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And have a very nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.